Dear friends, what you are going to hear in this MP3 are the live recordings of the classes that I had taken in the year 1999 at Savitri Bhavan, Aurobindo. A couple of students from Aurobindo used to attend my classes on the Life Divine, which I was giving at the Hall of Harmony, Sriaurobindo International Center of Education, Pondicherry. They got so very interested in these classes that they invited me and arranged for my classes on the Life Divine at Savitri Bhavan. The Bhavan provided an ideal atmosphere for reading, studying and researching into the most integral and one of the greatest metaphysical books by Sri Aurobindo. I do not claim to have understood much of this monumental philosophy. I have only touched the fringe of this ocean of wisdom and spiritual revelations. What I have shared with the enthusiastic audience at the Bhavan is my joy in studying this epic of the mind and my intense love and adoration for Sri Aurobindo, the Rishi non-parai. His crystal clear analytical mind, his giant leap into the future, his depth of knowledge that cannot be easily gauged by human mind, his care for details, and his painstaking explanations are some of the things that I have highlighted in these explanations of the text. In such a stupendous task, such as taking up the study of the Life Divine, my ignorance too is as vast, and I have surely blundered in many places. So, I request the listener to overlook these defects and to appreciate the sincere efforts that have gone into the work. Also, I seek the indulgence of the listener in the sound quality of the recordings. In those early days, the recording instruments with us were not of any professional quality. Hence, the records are not perhaps to the expected standards, but we have done the best we could to improve the quality of the live recordings. This is the first of the series of MP3 CDs that are being brought out in the series of the Life Divine Studies. As and when we are ready, we shall bring out the remaining ones also. All the proceedings of these sales will go to the research works at the Sri Aurobindo Center for Advanced Research, Pondicherry. Hope you enjoyed these classes, these class talks, but please see that whenever you listen to them, keep the original text of the Life Divine beside you. Thank you.
When Sri Aurobindo had begun writing the Life Divine, in the aria, the first rumblings of the First World War were already heard in the Western world. It was perhaps the first knockings of the demolition of the old world. It is, I feel, as if nature were destroying the old world of the mind, sort of making the ground clear for the vision of a new life. A vision that was being written about in a remote corner in Pondicherry. Well, you can see, while a kind of a darkness was spreading over the entire world, and most of you here must have read what Mother and Sri Aurobindo have written regarding the two world wars, it's very obvious that on the occult level, a great battle was being prepared between forces of darkness and of light. And amidst this darkness and this battle, someone quietly sitting at a table, hardly known to the world, was creating a new vision of life. A new vision that would be based not on mind, but on a consciousness quite different and above mind. Well, it may seem a bit too early. Almost 85 years have gone by, but still we see not many people know Sri Aurobindo or his vision. But I suppose every new avatar comes almost, if I can say, centuries before and prepares the ground for the new. So, undisturbed by the world war and the forces, although as you know from Niruddha's talks and Puranaji's talks, Sri Aurobindo was taking reports of the day-to-day world war affairs. Still, he started with a new vision called the Life Divine. And this was a vision, as he would say in one of his letters. He says he wanted to create a new metaphysical vision of life. And that's very interesting, because I'll read out what he says exactly in a letter. He says, "What I have tried to give in the book Life Divine is a metaphysical foundation of yoga and a new way of life." So here we are, in Sri Aurobindo's own words, the raison d'etre of the Life Divine. A new is a metaphysical foundation of yoga and a new way of life. So this he started creating, and month after month, one side the world war was raging and increasing, and on the other side the vision was coming forth month after month, week after week. So this is where almost, if I can give a parallelism, while the Kurukshetra was being fought, Sri Krishna gives the Gita. So in the Kurukshetra of the First World War, a new Gita was being given, a new vision of life was being given to humanity. The circumstances are very similar, and very similar is the message that we have got to ascend, evolve in the midst of this battle of life, and not run away from this life and grow and evolve quite separated from the battle of life. Just as Sri Krishna tells Arjuna that pick up your bow and arrow and fight, because you have got to fight for a greater purpose. So also Sri Aurobindo would give us a vision of life, where he analyzes what life is, what are its problems, and what is its purpose, and where are we going or moving towards, how are we moving towards that new goal. And in similar circumstances, he gives us a wonderful new vision. And what is very interesting here is the title itself, The Life Divine. I mean, it is not a divine life, because divine life we could all think of in our own personal way. Perhaps long back in 1970s or 71, 72, when I was at Aspiration, maybe that seemed to be a divine life for me. The freedom and the love and the harmony and the beauty around me. For me personally, it was a divine life. But Aurobindo is not speaking of a divine life of individual persons. Some people living in the hills of Switzerland, they may think it to be their divine life. But Aurobindo is describing here the life divine. That means a particular vision of life which is divinized. So it is not any vision, but Aurobindo's the vision of the life divine. And you see, very interestingly, he calls it life divine, whereas he could have called it mind divine or matter divine. But he calls it life, again perhaps with an emphasis on the transformation of life itself. You see, according to his philosophy of evolution, life stands between matter and mind. So it has got influences of both matter, and it is dominated by mind too. So he said perhaps his best thing is to transform life itself. Because up until now, as we have seen in our spiritual history, Vedas, Upanishads, Gita, etc., they have attacked mind. Great philosophies, great religions have had a kind of a impact on our mind. But hardly any philosophy till now changed life itself. So Aurobindo was very emphatic that the change and the transformation must come on the life plane to begin with. And as we have the transformation in the life plane, we can have transformation on the mind and matter. And again, I would say the title Life Divine is important in the context of it, in the Indian context, and which we will see in the very first chapter, where we have this great influence of asceticism, running away from life, thinking that life is a maya, is an illusion. So Aurobindo kind of pulls back attention to life and not to the philosophy of a rejection of life. So everything is focusing on life plane, so that if we attack the life plane, the rest of the things get sorted out. So therefore we have a very fine significance of the title Life Divine itself. And then, in fact, this is as I told you in the very first talk, if I remember, where he had said the Life Divine is not philosophy but fact. It contains what I have realized and seen. In another letter he says, my own life and my yoga have always been, since my coming to India, both this worldly and otherworldly, without any exclusiveness on either side. So you can see what has been his experience, that he could simultaneously live on the plane of life and on other spiritual heights. And in one of his letters, where he confides For me, all is Brahman, and I find the divine everywhere. This was his Vedantic realization of seeing Brahman constantly everywhere. So you can imagine from such a man, what do we expect? Where he can see in this very life the constant Brahman consciousness. So obviously he had to emphasize on the reality of this life. And in another letter he says, in my yoga also I found myself moved to include both worlds in my purview, the spiritual and the material, and try to establish the divine consciousness and the divine power in men's hearts and earthly life, not for a personal salvation only, but for a life divine here. It is this view and experience of things and of the truth of existence that enabled me to write the Life Divine and Savitri. So now you can see the personal background. By the time he started this, he was already in this consciousness, and therefore he says, that is what enabled me to write the Life Divine and Savitri. So with this background, he launched on not a philosophy. We should never consider this book, The Life Divine, as a book of philosophy. As he has said, and I read out here, that it is a metaphysical purview. So he is trying to create a new yoga. And later in the Arya, in one of the, I think on the first anniversary of the Arya, he writes a comment saying that it is this vision of a new life which he enunciates in the Life Divine, that he tried to see if it is really practicable or is it something utopian. To analyze that, he says, he took upon himself and wrote the other books, the Synthesis of Yoga, the On the Veda, Gita, Foundations, Ideal of Human Unity, Human Cycle. So he said, can I apply this Life Divine philosophy in other fields? So he took up Human Cycle and Ideal of Human Unity to see in this vastness of humanity, can I apply, or is it just a simple personal experience? And there he saw that he could apply this theory of evolution on entire mankind itself. And then again he tested this theory to see if the Vedas and the Upanishads, did they have the same philosophy or where did they differ? So he goes into the depths of the Vedas and the Upanishads and the Gita and finds that his experience can be corroborated by these ancient scriptures. So what he has written in the Arya, the six or eight major works, are really, they have a rational foundation. It's not just he wanted to write any kind of book. It was a very systematic study of his own experience. And once when he was giving an explanation of Isha Upanishad, it was very interesting to see that letter. While commenting on that, he writes, the Isha Upanishad is the gospel of a divine life in the world and a statement of the conditions under which it is possible and the spirit of its living. In fact, if you ever see these old Aryas, you will see Sri Aurobindo calls Isha Upanishad as the Life Divine. In fact, this title was first used for the comments on the Isha Upanishad. So you can see the importance of this Isha Upanishad with its 18 verses, that it contains almost the essence of the Life Divine. I mean, even the vision of the supermind is there, the glimpse into the supermind is there, and that the world is a reality and how it has got to evolve and how man has to evolve. All that is mentioned in the Upanishad, Isha Upanishad. So he was very much taken up by this book, the Isha Upanishad, and he gives lengthy comments on that, and he considers that as having the the kernel of the philosophy of life divine. Well, with this, he launched in 1914 upon this first book, The Life Divine. And may I request those who have the book to open the chapter 1, the human aspiration. Now again, you see the title, the human aspiration, and by now all of you know, sitting in this Savitri Bhavan, the very opening of Savitri itself, the symbol dawn. In the symbol dawn, we see an opening that is there on the cosmic level. Aurobindo starts off on a scale of the cosmos. It was the hour before the gods awakening. It was the hour before the gods were awake. But life divine is not symbolic. It is absolutely realistic. So he comes to grips with man straight away. He doesn't use symbolism of the cosmos and the beginning of the cosmos and how Usha comes in and how Savitri comes in. Here he straight away starts with man and his aspiration. And with this beginning, you'll see a very fine quotation given here, taken from Rigveda by Kutsa Angirasa. She follows to the goal of those that are passing on beyond. She is the first in the eternal succession of the dawns that are coming. Usha widens, bringing out that which lives, awakening someone who was dead. What is her scope when she harmonizes with the dawns that shone out before and those that now must shine? She desires the ancient mornings and fulfills their light. Projecting forwards her illumination, she enters into communion with the rest that are to come. Well, you see this quotation from Rigveda is again very similar to what we see in Savitri actually, the coming of the dawn. Well, it's not that Aurobindo was really trying to imitate this or that, but obviously this invocation to the dawn, to dawn Usha, is I suppose an ancient practice. It is in the modern time that we have started invoking Lord Ganesha, but in those ancient times it was always invocation to Usha. So she here is Usha. So it says, Usha follows to the goal of those that are passing on beyond. She is the first in the eternal succession of the dawns that are coming. Now, the word Usha itself means etymologically coming into manifested being. Now, that's very significant. Usha means coming into manifested being. So every dawn brings in a kind of a new manifestation of the Supreme Being. It brings a new truth, and that, he says, is the first in the eternal succession of the dawn that are coming. Usha widens, bringing out that which lives.